Thousands of years ago, a civilization rose along the banks of the Nile. Ancient Egypt, pyramids, mummies, and pharaohs. But beyond what you know, their daily lives were filled with strange habits that might seem extremely odd, even terrifying today. From removing the brain through the nose, to punishing people in rooms full of insects, and turning slaves into fly traps, they did incredible things. So how did the ancient Egyptians actually live? And what bizarre rituals were a part of their lives? Get ready to explore the hidden sides of one of history's most mysterious civilizations. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share with us in the comments what surprised you the most. Removing the brain through the nose, the shocking ritual of the ancient Egyptians. In ancient Egypt, death was not an end, but the beginning of an eternal journey. Pharaohs and nobles were embalmed so their spirits could live on in the afterlife. However, this process included a practice that might seem terrifying to us today: removing the brain through the nose. The Egyptians believed the brain was unnecessary. The heart was considered the true center of the soul and consciousness. A special hook was inserted through the nose to slowly remove the brain. Afterward, the skull was cleaned and dried with natron salt. This strange method was part of preserving the body from decay. While modern medical operations are meticulous, the Egyptians managed to do this effectively with primitive tools thousands of years ago. 2. Mass mummification of animals. The strange tradition of the ancient Egyptians. In ancient Egypt, it wasn't just humans who were mummified. In fact, this practice was done on a massive scale. Egyptians mummified cats, dogs, monkeys, and even crocodiles as offerings to their gods. Mummified cats were often found in temples dedicated to the goddess Bastet. Egyptians believed these animals had spiritual powers and regarded them as sacred. Archaeologists have unearthed millions of animal mummies. People would purchase these mummies to offer to the gods in hopes of making their wishes come true. However, some merchants would make fake mummies, filling them with straw or leaving them hollow. This tradition shows how powerful Egypt's religious beliefs were and how deceit was already a part of commerce back then. Was this practice truly a sacred ritual or just a big trade? 3. Being locked in a room full of insects to die. One of ancient Egypt's most horrific punishments. Ancient Egypt was known not only for its grandeur, but also for its harsh punishments. One of the most terrifying penalties was locking criminals in a room full of live insects. The condemned person would be left in a pitch-black cell filled with hungry insects. Over time, these insects would gnaw at the person's body, causing a slow and agonizing death. This punishment was typically reserved for those who betrayed the pharaoh or desecrated sacred temples. The slow, torturous nature of this death made it a form of extreme punishment. The justice system in ancient Egypt was based on strict laws, with betrayal almost always resulting in death. Even today, such a punishment would send chills down anyone's spine. If you were ever faced with such a fate, how would you escape? 4. Using slaves as human shields to protect from flies. Ancient Egypt's bizarre method. In ancient Egypt, flies were a significant nuisance. Especially in the areas around the Nile, people developed strange ways to protect themselves from these bothersome insects. Pharaohs and nobles used different scents and ointments to keep flies away. However, the strangest and most cruel method was using slaves as human shields. The wealthy would cover their slaves in honey and sweet liquids to attract the flies to them, keeping the insects away from themselves. These slaves had to remain motionless for hours, enduring countless fly bites without being able to move. This method provided comfort for the pharaohs and nobles, but it was a true form of torture for the slaves. Was this an extreme display of power or just an act of desperation? 5. Testing pregnancy with wheat and barley. Ancient Egypt's incredible method. Ancient Egypt was a civilization that laid the foundations for modern medicine, but when it came to pregnancy tests, they had a rather strange approach. Women would urinate on wheat and barley to determine if they were pregnant. If the wheat and barley sprouted, the woman was considered pregnant. The Egyptians believed that chemical changes in a woman's body would affect the grains. This test was widely used at the time, and some sources claim it produced accurate results. However, from a scientific perspective, this method was certainly flawed. Nonetheless, it demonstrates ancient Egypt's practical intelligence and their deep connection with nature. How might such ancient practices still affect us today? 6. The Pharaoh who cut out his own tongue, Psamtik's strange experiment. One of the most bizarre and thought-provoking experiments in ancient Egypt was conducted by Pharaoh Psamtik. Psamtik wanted to discover the world's first language, so he isolated 2 babies in a room, ensuring they never heard any spoken words. He hoped the first words they spoke would reveal the original language. As the babies grew, their first word was bikos, which means bread in Phrygian. Psamtik believed this showed that the world's first language was Phrygian. This strange experiment raises important questions about the formation of language and culture. Was this truly a scientific test, or was Psamtik just trying to validate his own beliefs? 7. Abandoning the mentally ill to die, ancient Egypt's cruel practice. In ancient Egypt, society was rigidly structured around belief systems and order. However, within this system, there was a cruel practice for those with mental disorders. People with mental disabilities were often ostracized and left to die. These individuals were seen as the products of natural selection, unable to survive. However, in some cases, Egyptians considered these individuals sacred, particularly those under the protection of the god Horus. This practice was part of Egypt's rigid structure, as those with disabilities were thought to be a burden to society. How does modern society's treatment of the mentally ill differ, and how has it evolved to become more humane? 8. Parading naked women. One of ancient Egypt's astonishing traditions. Ancient Egypt had powerful female figures. Figures like Pharaoh Hatshepsut proved that women held strong roles. However, certain practices provide insight into the societal position of women. One such practice was parading women naked as part of religious and cultural rituals. Women would walk naked during festivals dedicated to the fertility goddess Hathor, as part of a ritual to invoke her blessings of abundance. This practice reflects how ancient Egypt viewed women in terms of fertility and power. Some historians argue that this practice was not about degrading women, but rather symbolizing their power in the eyes of the gods. Was this tradition linked to the reverence of women, or was it a display of societal control and belief in divine power? 9. Anointing pharaohs before mummification, the sacred preparation of ancient Egypt. The mummification process in ancient Egypt was one of the most important rituals for the dead, and every step was done with great care. But before mummification, pharaohs and nobles were anointed with special oils. These oils, which contained olive oil, mixtures, and plant extracts, were believed to protect the body from external elements and purify the spirit. Especially for pharaohs, this anointing was vital, as they believed it ensured their peaceful existence in the afterlife. This meticulous preparation demonstrates the Egyptians' deep understanding of both medical knowledge and spiritual beliefs. How did this careful preparation reflect the ancient Egyptians' views on death and the afterlife? Ancient Egypt was a land of mystery, filled with astonishing and bizarre rituals. From mummification to animal sacrifices, brutal punishments, and strange tests, every individual in this society, from pharaohs and nobles to slaves, lived in a world governed by various beliefs and customs. Today, as we explore the remnants of this ancient civilization, we not only uncover history, but also the complexity and sometimes terrifying nature of human behavior. But one question remains. Were these practices truly reflections of the people's beliefs, or did they stem from the fears and power struggles within the society? Each of these stories is a reflection of an era, and this mysterious civilization continues to captivate our curiosity. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore even more secrets. Stay scared,